That was not on purpose, Lainey. Did you just put that up?
Yeah, I bet that's been up for a few minutes, yeah.
Look at you. I'll change mine then.
See, this Kismet before, I had the same background as Lainey to start off with last time too. Not on purpose either.
Okay, you're all set.
Okay, for those joining us again, this is the day 2 of the Board of Finance public hearing, department hearings on the budget for 2021-22 municipal year, fiscal year. And we are back after lunch with Jean Rabineau and Tracy Vonick in elections on page 27 in the big books. Hi, Jean. Hi, Tracy.
Hello. I don't see Jean on. Is she on?
She was
She might not be.
before.
Was she?
Yep, she'll be back. All right. Tracy, you want to get us started in that department?
Really, it's my first time through here. So, I mean, unless you have specific questions about something, I don't have the book in front of me. I'm actually doing this from out of town.
Are you somewhere fun?
Florida.
Well, that's more fun than here right now.
A little warmer.
Yeah. The least you could do is be next to a palm tree for us.
Well, I didn't want to rub it in, so I pointed the computer away from the palm tree right outside the window.
Okay. Anybody have specific
yeah, I mean,
questions?
I went through it. I mean, everything looks pretty self-explanatory unless you guys had a specific question about something. Maria, I just have one thing for you, which is more of a follow-up, which we can, I guess, discuss offline. It's really in some of the accessories that we're going to have to buy going to the 7 districts. Just some of the names are a little different. I think it says IVS down there twice. We have to buy some of those IVS machines. And then we also have to buy some tabulators. And I think they're both classified as IVS as opposed to one's a tabulator and one's an IVS. They're 2 different machines. But other than that, nothing else really stood out to me. So again, unless you guys have specific questions about something.
Does the cost change?
No. The monies that you have allocated in there are fine. It's just the name on some there. I just didn't want it to be confusing because it's 2 different machines.
Okay, so which one is which?
The more expensive one, I think you had in 1,300. Those are or 1,700. I forget. Those are the tabulators, and the IVS machines are the ones that are a few hundred each.
The IVS are the ballot marking things for the handicapped.
There you go. Jean's back.
Hi, Jean. So that for anybody following along, that is in account 522-205 under municipal elections. And you'll see that there's 5,100 and 2,800 for, they both say IVS ballot marking systems, but the first one will be the tabulator. Did I get that right?
I believe so.
Woohoo. All right. Jean, is there anything else you think we need to know as we move to 7 districts?
Everything is, the costs are remarkably stable. It's just that the move is going to have a higher upfront cost. In future years, the maintenance costs will be slightly higher because it's pegged to the number of machines.
Okay. Any questions for Jean and Tracy on elections? Excellent. Well, that was pretty good. I'm sorry we made you come back after lunch, Jean.
No, this is great.
Excellent. Tracy, enjoy your palm trees.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Bye.
Next on our list, we have the health department. I don't know if Lucy Bango is with us yet. So maybe if she's not, we can skip.
Lainey?
Yeah.
Excuse me. Sorry, it's Cicero. Lucy will not be here today. She is out of the office. So we can either go through her budget, which I don't think there's really anything too much there, but if you have questions, we can try to answer them.
Okay, why don't we go through, let's go to page 319 in the budget book. If there's any questions, we'll at least be able to pass them on to Lucy.
She sends her apologies, by the way, but it's unforeseen.
I can't imagine that she could be busy.
No,
Oh, what would our health director be busy now?
yeah, well, there is a clinic going on today, but doesn't have to do with the clinic, so.
Okay, well, hopefully she's okay, and that if we have any questions, they're simple, and she'll be able to just do them by email for us. Does anybody have any specific questions that I can take down for the health department?
Lainey, is it Elaine?
Yeah,
It not so specific as it would be nice just to have an update on our COVID vaccine situation, whether we're getting what we need. Vicky may know, Vicky probably does know this. Are we getting the supplies we need? I was reading today about how the age level is going to drop very quickly. And are we meeting the demand?
Yeah, so let me address that if I could. You know, it started off slowly, as we all know from what we've seen in the news, that it was difficult to get the supply from the state because the state was having difficulty getting from the federal government. But the supply has picked up. This week we are running 3 clinics in Trumbull. One today, a big one tomorrow at Trumbull High School with 1,000 doses of Moderna, and another smaller clinic on Thursday. So we can see that the supply is picking up. But Elaine, you're right. The actual scheduling for the vaccinations is also going to be accelerated.
Yeah.
So we're right now, we're still at the 55 and older age group. And that also does include the past phases of the health professionals. It also includes the educators and childcare providers, our medical first responders. They're all eligible right now for the vaccine. Beginning on this Friday, the age drops to 45 and older. So people beginning on Friday, March 19th, will be able to register for their vaccine if they're 45 and older. The next phase will begin tentatively at this point, that's the word that was used, on April 5th. Now that will include anyone who is 16 to whatever age. So they've really dropped this down quickly because that last phase was not going to begin until May 3rd. So they're actually going to be a month ahead of themselves as far as when you are eligible to get the vaccine. Now, of course, you can get the vaccine anywhere. Everyone knows you don't need to go to Trumbull to get the vaccine. You get the vaccine wherever you can find a place to get it. So, but you know, we have been servicing our own community, I think, very well. And right now, as of yesterday, our numbers that about 10,000 of our residents have been vaccinated, which is about 27% of the population. And over 1 million people have been vaccinated in the state of Connecticut.
Vicky, one of the questions someone had asked me, you said that tomorrow they're vaccinating with Moderna. When you get the first shot, are they making your appointment then and there, or do they have to scramble onto the internet again?
No, I believe when you get your vaccine, Bill's got his head going. They sign you right up for that second dose.
Okay, good. And do you know the breakout? Have we gotten much of the Pfizer, Moderna, J&J?
Yeah, good question. So in the beginning and really right through this, we've mostly had Moderna. I don't think we've ever had Pfizer because, you know, there's the issues with Pfizer and having to keep it very cold, frozen, you know, so there's some issues there. We did get 1,000 vaccines of Johnson & Johnson the week before last. And that was our teacher clinic that we had, I think a week ago on Friday. We got 1,000 doses of Johnson & Johnson. There's been some issues with J&J, so I'm not sure where we are with that. But right now, it was really good news that we got 1,000 of the Moderna for this week.
And just to clarify, you meant issues with receiving it, not issues with the
supply,
vaccine.
not the vaccine itself.
No issues with the vaccine itself, just on receiving it. Yeah.
I thought that's what you meant, but I was afraid that some people would interpret it.
No, thank you for catching that. No issues with the vaccine itself. Our clinics have been, you know, doing well. We've had a real a good just working with some volunteers in town. There's a mom who started who's a nurse,
Yeah.
who started that volunteer list that has over 100 people on it, that includes not only nurses, but veterinarians and dentists and anyone who's could become a vaccinator. And there's other ways that you can become a vaccinator. So we really have been lucky to have such great volunteers in the town of Trumbull, which we always know we have, who have stepped up to help us run these clinics.
I would be interested, and certainly much later on, if we get a sense of the percent that ends up being vaccinated. I was a little discouraged having a conversation with the chief about the lower percentages there.
So I'm sorry, but percentages.
The percentages of employees and town residents who choose to do it. And I understand it's completely voluntary. I deal with the same thing, even in healthcare. Not everyone wants it.
Yep.
Not questioning anybody's reason for not wanting it. I do think it's ironic, though, because there was something this morning in the paper that confused me, and I'm sure some of it's misinformation, but they were talking about Gino Auriemma having his first shot and his second, but only 4 days after the second he got it. I hesitate to read the paper or follow the paper in this, because there's a chance the vaccine itself, since you're making antibodies, could cause a false positive.
I actually checked on that. It's the type of vaccine that it is. It does something within your cells to recognize it. So there's no actual virus in your system that does that. So you don't test positive, because we had an issue where I had exposure after my first shot. I was told not to get tested, then I was told to get tested. So I can very much vouch for the fact that you won't get a false negative. You can contract COVID and test positive after the vaccine. It's what it actually does. And if you listen to the news story, Gino Auriemma is completely asymptomatic. Right. It was an incidental find. They're testing daily because of the NCAA tournament. So that's really important, I think, when talking about that. And once you do have the vaccine, it's still important to wear masks and to practice good hand hygiene and social distancing, because even though you might not get sick, you can still pass the virus on.
And I actually know someone who got the vaccine, about a week later, got COVID, and not asymptomatic, but a very symptomatic COVID, because he passed it to two other members of his family. And that they gave him the second shot anyway. They went ahead on the same schedule and gave him the second shot. So I know some people are confused as to whether or not, if they've had the virus, they should get the shot. And while they're saying you should wait 90 days, they're really doing that because they want to get everyone else vaccinated, and that you have some level of immunity for a while. So that's why they're asking the community who have gotten it to wait a little bit. So,
yeah, I believe it takes, and Lainey, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it takes a couple weeks for the immunity to be sufficient enough to, not, at least be less ability to catch it. So that 1 week that person had the vaccine,
it just wasn't enough. And he happens to be in a job where he's got a lot of exposure. And so unfortunately brought it home to his family, but everyone's good.
Yeah.
Just a public service announcement. Thank you. Yes. A public service announcement about like vaccines. So if you're on the fence about whether or not to do it, I've had experience working with a lot of people who've had what they consider to be mild cases of COVID and are having long-term effects pop up, cardiac issues and all sorts of stuff. So it really is no joke. It's not like the regular flu. So please consider getting the vaccine to help stop the spread.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we get a lot in town and we're able to get what we need. That's great.
Yeah, just a shout out to the health department who's been running these clinics and continuing to do everything else that the health department does. So I just want to thank them. And again, Lucy would be here, and she does send her regrets. So if you need to talk to her, she'll be available probably maybe in a week or so. So if you have more questions that we can't answer here.
That's fine. If we have any questions, we'll send them along to her directly.
Okay.
If there's nothing else for the health department at the moment, we'll move on. Maria, can we see if Kevin Bova, and I see TR just popped on. Hello, Judge Rowe. We can actually
just email me. I'm taking care of it.
Awesome. So what we can do is actually move down our 3 o'clock spot, Judge TR Rowe for probate, page 23. We'll skip around a little bit, keep ourselves moving. Hi, TR.
Hi, Laney, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good, nice to see you, and I see Elaine and Bill and everyone else I don't see, but hello.
So what do you got for us, sir?
Well, I just got a text from Kathy asking if I could come on early, so I'm scrambling, but pretty straightforward. The probate court budget is largely a function of the state, but the municipalities to which belong to the probate district, which is Trumbull, East, and Monroe, all contribute to upkeep such as office supplies, the telephone, the copier, things of that nature. So really last year, Trumbull was on the hook for $12,350. The only change we submitted this year was an addition. We went to e-filing, which was supposed to reduce paperwork and make it easier for folks to engage the probate court, and it has. The difficulty is that we're still required under the regulations to print out every filing, so there's a paper file. I hope that doesn't continue indefinitely, but so we went through a ton more paper, hence the additional request for that amount of office supplies. And as you know, Laney and Elaine and everyone, we go by the grand list between the three towns. Trumbull's is by far the largest. I think Trumbull's at about 57%, Monroe about 27%, and then Easton would be, the difference, about 16% or so of our total budget. So again, Trumbull share, $12,430, up from $12,350. That's the Reader's Digest version, but I'm happy for questions or concerns or whatever.
And did you find with COVID that you were able to keep up on schedule? Did it have any impact in your processing?
Yeah, that's a good question. For a while, probably for March and April of last year, and we were open. We stayed open. We're in the town hall, as you may know, and we did stay open the whole time. We were only seeing people in emergency basis, but filings continued, and people were passing away, and life went on in some manner. So that's sort of a winding answer to what should have been a short question. Yeah, we were able to keep up for the most part, and now we're pretty darn busy as life gets back to some semblance of normalcy.
Any other questions for probate? Well, that was easy.
That was easy. Good. Yes.
Thank you, TR.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
you
you.
for your help. Good luck with the rest of the day.
Have a good day.
Okay, you too. Bye, Vic. Bye, Lane. See you, Bill.
All right. Let's see, who else has joined us? Maria, is there anything that you can do without someone else from your list? Can we do town hall? I'm gonna just unmute.
Yes, we could do town hall.
Okay, let's move to town hall on page 125.
I've asked Len, I asked the golf course, and I asked Kevin and Tom McCarthy to come on as soon as they're available. I mean, Tom just asked, I can tell him to come in.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right, so town hall, page 125. Okay, go ahead, Maria.
Find my page, sorry. I was trying to reply to that email. So town hall account, basically it's everything that doesn't cover, that's not covered in any other department, such as, you'll see, we actually put in the part-time floater again. I know this year we weren't able to use anybody because of the fact that, we were on teams and we couldn't have additional staffing in. But we would like to keep that position and bring it back. Hopefully, we needed some seasonals to help with the front office, front desk downstairs and other areas. So that would have been helpful to have someone. So I would like to just let you guys know that we would like to keep it. The contingency account, the only thing that's there this year has to do with the health insurance for that early retirement plan, which is in their final year. And also we put a 50,000 just for payout of accumulated sick and vacation time if someone retires.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt for a moment? This is Marty Eismick. On the first two, there's a reference to a floater on the first two line items. Is it one floater that is going to accommodate both those needs? So in 1102 and 1103, there's mention of the floater. So
yes, initially we weren't sure if we're going to get a floater or a seasonal, or actually in professional, you'll have another 20,000 in there. We decided that a floater will be helpful and would be enough to cover anything else we'd like to do, like scanning and that kind of stuff.
So is that in 1102 or 1103?
1102. So we're keeping that 1102.
I missed it. Okay, 1103 is down to 0. I misunderstood. Okay, got it.
That's okay, no problem. So down to property and liability insurance, it did go up approximately 6%. I'm sorry, 8%. It basically covers liability, auto, property, anything with school liability, school officials, public officials liability, law enforcement. So that's liability insurance.
Sorry, this is Marty again. I'm interrupting you twice. I think I cut you off in the middle of contingency. So typically contingency, we're at 500,000 and this year it's 90. So say that again for me. I'm sorry, I'm not following.
Okay, so last year, all our contracts were up for renewal except for the fire marshals. All contracts have been settled. They're in their second or third year right now, so there's no need to put anything in contingency. It's reflected in the salaries right now. And that's why in some departments, you'll see that it appears to be a double, like 2 years of increases, because we have not transferred funds from contingency to cover that increase for last year.
I see now.
This fiscal year.
Thank you.
So that is why this year it's only $90,000.
Maria, on the insurance, two questions on the insurance. One, we talked a little bit about during the technology budget, whether or not we had coverage for cyber attack and if we needed to look at that and if we had enough. That was one of the follow-up questions from technology.
Yeah.
And the other one is, had we looked at going out to bid for the insurance for the auto insurance? Excuse me.
Okay, so to address your first question, your request came in. We are in the process of answering all those questions. We do have cyber insurance. I will get details. I asked Dan to ask our broker about the details of it. Our broker does go out to bid for insurance, but the plan is to go out to bid for the broker at this point. The plan is to go out to bid for the broker.
May I also ask a question on the insurance?
You can if you wait your turn, because Elaine has her hand up nicely.
I apologize.
There you go, Elaine.
Okay. Maria, I just want to go back a second. The scanning documents, which you mentioned are in 3 different places. What documents are we scanning?
Well, as you know, by closing town hall, it's been really difficult. I know in my office, we had to scan quite a bit just to be able to work from home. And the plan is going forward to try to scan current documents that will be searchable and then go backwards as well.
And is that going to be department by department, or is this just for your department?
No, this is department. The department will hopefully use that temporary person or that floater to cover when needed, and also to start this process of scanning for various departments. It could be that it turns out that it's not enough time, but at this point, I think we need to start and see where it goes.
Okay, and then on property and liability insurance, I know you're checking on the cyber. Since a lot of people are working from home now, so we have more laptops and desktops and they're taking them home, I assume those are covered?
Yes, and probably I know that Bill has been involved with a lot of that, obviously the security, and maybe he can speak to that if he's on. I'm not sure if he's still on.
Yeah, he's there. But he's muted.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to get Kevin Bova into this meeting. What's the question?
The security, now that we're all working remotely and we have our laptops, I know you worked a lot on security to make sure all the securities are in place while working remotely.
Sure. Yeah, everybody connects securely to the network. You have to log in with your username and password and account. So that's all being taken care of.
Elaine, did that answer your question, or was your question more about the insurance on the actual hardware itself, like the laptops?
Yeah, it was actually the insurance on the laptop, which I think Maria did say they're covered when they take them home. I would think, though, that probably costs us a little bit more because now they're moving objects not under the town hall direct control.
We can confirm that. I didn't think so, but we can confirm.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lainey.
Okay, Mary and then Marty.
My hand up before you, Marty. I was faster. So I'm sorry, just back to, we discussed the accreditation process with the police, and I'm curious if under that, the liability under 511160, if that's where, if there is a savings, it would be in that area, or is that in another spot? And that's, again, if they do have a savings.
That was one of the questions from Lainey, which we are asking our broker right now. We didn't think that it was going to be a savings, but we are currently requesting that information. We are currently working on that list.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mary, I didn't copy you on the, when I sent out the list.
Yeah, I knew it was a question on the accreditation, because I remember when the chief had brought it up. I just wasn't sure if it was in that line item or somewhere else.
Yeah, I actually remembered to include it in the follow-up questions, but I neglected to send the follow-up questions to the town council finance committee. I apologize. Marty.
Not anymore. My lovely wife asked my question.
But I did send you that email, Marty.
I know, that's what I feel bad about.
All right. Any other questions in town hall?
I
think we're good in town hall. I see Tom McCarthy has, I'm sorry, Elaine, you're waving.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm looking under program expense. So I'm sorry, I'm confused, and maybe this would have been something we'd have taken up with Anthony Musto, but we had banking fees of 40,000. Last year we revised them to 25.
Yes.
Where I'm confused is I thought when we went to People's United, we were going to pay fees instead of compensating balances. Now this is saying we are using compensating balances again?
We started that last year. Last fiscal year, we started that, and that was the reason we went from 40 to 25. And this year to date, we paid $5,000 in fees because we are using compensating balance instead of paying fees. So basically, we're earning credits towards the fees.
Okay, but I'm not crazy. Within the last year, we had flip-flopped that and said we didn't want to use compensating balances because that wasn't giving us enough money, and we wanted to make interest on the money ourselves.
Yeah, that's when the interest rate was high. And since last year, 2021, we did reduce it. We started that process last year. Last year, meaning fiscal 21.
Okay, and then under contributions, we've chosen to eliminate everything we're typically doing and go back.
Yes,
it says eliminate all contributions except for CCM.
That's correct.
So we're, okay, so we won't do fire recognition, but we're back into CCM. Were we out of that? We've been in and out of it so often, I feel like my head's on a swivel.
We've been at it for maybe 4 or 5 years now.
Okay, and now we're going back.
And basically,
No, we've been in it. We've not been out of it. We've been in it since at least since I became first selectman.
Okay.
Yeah, we were out of it before though, before that.
So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the RISAP contribution and all those others.
Well, I don't say we want to get rid of anything, Elaine. It's just based on the challenging times we're dealing with here, as we did the last year. We certainly will revisit it when things, return to normal, whatever normal might be.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Mary, you had your hand up again briefly. Are you good?
Yeah, I'm sorry, just what is in the, for the scanning and profession in 2202, that 20,000?
Yeah, we got rid of that one. That's the same question that I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I missed it. That it went into first selectman
I'm
canceled.
gonna try to use the floater to do some of that work.
Got it. Yep, I missed that it was out of first selectman. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. So Tom McCarthy, welcome back, sir. We will go to
Hello.
employee. I'm sorry.
I said hello.
Oh, hello. I thought that was stop. We're going to employee benefits on page 109.
You want to do his department first?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're correct. Human resources, page 101. All right. Mr. McCarthy, the show is yours.
Okay, so hello, everybody. I think I saw most of you folks earlier today. This is my first time doing this, so do you want me to do a quick little overview of what our year look like and then talk about the budget, or how do you want me to handle it?
That would be fantastic.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm not going to shock anybody when I say that my entire life and our office's life was COVID, and then again COVID for the last year. Any plans we had to do, any changes or anything significant in the office, took a pretty significant backseat to the daily operations of dealing with COVID. So if you looked at things like our success and our accomplishments, the number one thing that we accomplished this year was doing our best to create policies that protected not only the employees, but also protected any of the town residents that would have visited town hall or any of our other buildings. And so our number one goal was health and safety this year. And I think we were very successful if you compare us without going into any details, because I don't want to go into anybody's private details, but we actually were pretty successful over the last year of preventing COVID from a COVID outbreak from happening in town hall, and that is because of the aggressive nature with which we attacked the COVID and limited access at some points and did things like that to protect not only the employees but the residents. So I'm very proud of how we reacted to that. For those who don't know, of course, now is the exact moment, Bill, that this thing wants to update my computer. Okay. You always try to get me, Bill. So we put in a number of policies. We did a number of things to fight the COVID, but that kind of meant that we put a lot of things on the back burner. One of the things we specifically put on the back burner was we put a hiring freeze in very early in the game. For those who don't realize, this is my first year. Actually, my 1-year anniversary is next week, a week from today. So I actually joined the town just in time for Vicki to tell me to shut the town down. So I have two staff people in my office, Mary Ann and Lisa. I have physically seen them each one time in person since we came. So it's kind of a weird world that I've been working in, but we make do, and I think we may do pretty well with Zoom and online. We put a hiring freeze in almost immediately upon my getting here, and we actually did if you remember the first, the CARES Act, we actually made some early decisions to keep services going at full. The first selectman and a few others were involved in those decision-making, and Vicki was very, very adamant about making sure we deliver maximum services while protecting our employees and the town. So we did that. And so we transitioned relatively quickly, and I would say actually very successfully to delivering services remotely for the most part. Very few actual services suffered, and I'm pretty proud of what the town did with that. So we put a hiring freeze in, and the hiring freeze what helped us to deal with the last budget cycle when this office was requested to negotiate concessions from the unions. And so we went into negotiations, and they were not fun. We were in public session, so I won't go into too many details about that. If you want me to talk about that, we'll have to go into executive session if you want. But I will tell you that it was not a fun negotiation. But I credit the employees of the town for stepping up in a very tough time and giving back. They took some concession days, and we froze a number of positions, and were able to get to the savings we needed to get to. And I credit Maria with working with me to make sure we were diligent and we were very harsh sometimes in our non-hiring and are delaying some hiring to make sure we got to the number to close the budget. So we also accomplished that. As you heard earlier from Lee, we created from scratch an EMS department in the middle of the pandemic. That was a crazy undertaking, but we got it done. And at the same time, we got it removed, the EMS department removed from civil service. So it made it kind of gave Lee a free hand with hiring people based on their certifications and experience, which we thought was important. And she's put together, I think, a great team over there. In terms of the collective bargaining agreements, I will be very non-specific. If you want specifics, we got to go into executive session. But we have now officially closed all of our contracts. Jim Hazelkamp closed the majority of them before he left. He left the DPW in binding arbitration, and the fire marshals was open. And so I closed the DPW. We made a deal to close DPW, taking it out of binding arbitration. And then we made a deal that actually is going in front of the town council the next meeting. Was being referred to it for the fire marshals to do a 2-year extension. So now we are now officially closed on all of our collective bargaining agreements. In this pandemic year, the state health plan decided to change from United Healthcare Oxford to the Blues, Anthem Blue Care, and so we had to transition all of our employees to that. So in the process of this year, we transitioned all of the town employees from one plan to the other. We have really no choice in that. That's the state plan. If you're part of the state plan, they essentially tell you what you have to do. And so we did that transition. It was a tremendous amount of work, and I would like to commend Marianne. Marianne Meyer did a wonderful, wonderful job of transitioning that. She did the majority of that. I did very little of that, to be very honest with you. In the meantime, we have been implementing the CARES Act, and at the same time, the labor relations has been going forward, and so we have been dealing with the labor relations issues. Luckily, we've worked very well with the unions. That not a lot of actual grievances or MPPs have been filed, but there have been a lot of day-to-day discussions with the unions about dealing with the pandemic, and I have to also credit the unions. They worked very closely with us to be very flexible. I'll be very honest with you, be very flexible in implementing all the changes that were coming with the pandemic. And so I think we've been pretty successful on that side. So that's generally the overview of our year. It was tough, but we got through it, and I'm still trying to learn where offices are in the building, but here I am. And in terms of my budget, there's not a lot here, as you probably can see. And the only 2 changes that really we're requesting are one in the clerical, and that's just to recognize we have a $60 per meeting stipend that we pay for clerical services for our Civil Service Commission, and it's always been it's been a lower number of civil service meetings, and the reality is we do at least 12 a year. That's my estimate of what we're doing, and so we're just overspending it. So it just doesn't, it seems to me to make sense to be honest about the fact that we need another $300. And so if, it's not the be all and end all of the universe, right? But I mean, I just wanted to be honest with you guys. The other one is our services contracts, and that literally is just the contracts are rotating into the new year, and built into those contracts are increases, and so those are just contractual increases. For instance, the number one issue with that one is NeoGov. NeoGov is the online hiring service we use. It is essential. It is it is not an option. It really is the basis of all of our hiring, and there's an increase there, so we just have to do the increase. So that is my budget. Lady, I think you're muted.
Sorry, my dog is talking to me as well.
Sorry, Chairwoman,
Elaine, you have a
sorry.
question?
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Hi, Tom. I have one question. One of the things that every year comes up with us is the difficulty in hiring police officers. We never make our goal. We never seem to get there. We think we're there, and then obviously somebody retires, and that's probably never going to change. Have we developed any kind of way to sort of always be looking, because we're never full? I mean, I can tell you in the 30 years that I've never seen us at full staff for more than a week before somebody retires.
Police. So I came, just for my little bit of a history, I was in Bridgeport for a long time, then I was in New Haven for a long time. And I will tell you, in New Haven, it was, they had moved from an internal pension into just a defined contribution. And it was, that is the battle, that is the big battle in the world, is that you still have a number of towns and cities that provide pensions, and then you have some that do not. And so you're always going to have the battle of the carousel of in and out some of these police officers, and it is an odd world because, just to be honest with you, I've done a lot of research on this, particularly when I was in New Haven, because New Haven was bleeding police officers, right? And so what we looked at was part of the issue is money, right? Sometimes this new generation of police officers, the younger ones, pension is important sometimes, but I'll tell you, instant dollars are sometimes more important to them. And so you'll see them forum shopping to get the best buck they can for a couple of years, and they continue to move. There is with millennials these days, there is not the same loyalty to town or employer that there used to be. It used to be you went in and you got a job in Bridgeport or say, and then you were like, well, I'm a lifer cop, I'm going to do my 30 and then I'm going to get out and then go somewhere else. Well, these days it is, I'm going to do a couple of years, get the training under my belt, and then I'm going to shop my services to the highest bidder. And so the question comes down to dollars and pension. I'm going to be honest with you, retirement is important to some folks. Some folks, it's just the dollars. So it's hard to put your finger on exactly what it is. Sometimes it's the land of, they look at their ability to move up the ranks more quickly. That is also something that we found. And for instance, a change we made in New Haven was they were kind of stalled for a while. So we created half steps where they could move up more quickly. And so they could feel at an earlier age, they could feel progression moving up. I have not done, to be honest with you, that kind of analysis here in Trumbull. And I have had these conversations with the chief, and I know Maria and I have talked about some of these issues. And Vicky, but I have not done a deep dive on here, and I certainly can do that with the chief. But I would say to you that there are positives and negatives to getting rid of pensions. The positive is you save actual real dollars and you have cost certainty. And I get that. That's a really big positive to a town and an employer. But there also is a long-term cost of you're losing experience and you're losing senior people. That's just how it works, because if they can get the same pay with a pension somewhere, a lot of them make that move. So
okay, I'm not as concerned, at least I'm not sure yet, that we're losing the young end. The reality is we are losing the ones that are retiring because they have reached retirement age. Now, granted, in the police pension, retirement age is 47, but nonetheless, a lot of times someone's already done 20 years by then. My concern is once we have an opening, it seems to take a long time and we don't always have a list ready. And I realize if the list gets too old, they've taken jobs other places. But are there, and I think we have a couple of things working against us. I think right now, it's not such an attractive profession. A lot of people are saying, I don't want to do this if the world hates me or the country hates me. I think there's a lot of factors. One of the things I'm wondering, have we ever laid aside an analysis of defined contribution versus defined benefit? And
Actually, Elaine, Vicky has asked Maria to do that. It was one of the things I had asked in our follow-up. If they had done an analysis, it's already in progress.
Good.
What it would look like if we went back to a pension plan, what it would look like if we went to a hybrid plan, and what is the cost savings to stay where we are. So that is in progress.
But I'm not concerned for a moment about our costs, because I think that our pension bills every year tell us where the costs are going to go if we go back. My thing is to be able to prove to somebody taking it, if I give you a defined contribution plan, and I think that the defined contribution plans we have are overly generous in that they're 7%. I've never seen a corporate with 7%. And you take that 7 and you track it, given just the S&P average, where will they end up after 20 years? And you have to unfortunately look historically back at the S&P for 20 years versus a defined benefit, which tells you, okay, this is what you're going to get at a certain year. The cost end that Maria is doing, I get, and I can already guess where that one's going to come out. Spend enough time in pensions, but I have never seen anyone look at take an individual and say, you start today, we have a contract, you're going to go up X amount of dollars, this is what you're going to get, assuming you never even get promoted from patrol to sergeant to lieutenant to captain or whatever, if you stayed in patrol. I don't know if you've ever heard of an analysis like that, Tom.
Yeah, so the difficulty you just pointed out in your question, the difficulty is that there is movement over time, and so it's hard to know. The case study is never consistent because you never know where people are moving. But we certainly could put together. I mean, that's an actuarial kind of table where we could put together what someone's life expectancy would be, in their normal years with the normal increases in pension, that kind of stuff. I mean, in wages, we could put something like that together. That's not an impossibility. It's just, I mean, it is a bit of a fiction, right? But I hear what you're saying in terms of, I hear what you're saying is that when folks are taking the test or thinking about taking the test, if you had something like that to wave in front of them, that shows it's more attractive. We don't have that now, and that's probably a good idea to do.
Yeah, that's exactly the scenario I'm thinking of, is a way to prove to them that while everyone is telling you this is bad, you have a defined contribution plan, you direct a little bit of it, it goes with you no matter what. And I think there are good selling points that maybe we're not using. And if you could put something together like that, I think it might help. The other thing that's hard to judge is we have a few friends who are officers in big cities in Connecticut. It's sort of Connecticut cities, New York, Norwalk or Bridgeport. And there isn't a chance in the world they want to work in Trumbull. And it's not because Trumbull's bad, because they live here. It's that it's not the kind of, I don't know the right word. It's not the environment they want to work in. They want a little bit more.
They want the action.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, no.
And so some of it is that, but they wouldn't apply here in the first place. So they wouldn't even take the test when the tests were open and they were testing for the other cities. I think there are a lot of reasons, but I wish we could figure out a way to keep a better flow of officers. So at some point we might actually see us filled. So that is a challenge, Tom. I think it might be the biggest challenge here.
So I'd say this is an odd year, so it's very hard for me to even, because we had a freeze and we pushed things back for financial reasons. And so everyone understands that this is not the year to look at for any normalcy, right? And so it's hard. So for me, it's hard to even understand the Trumbull world at this point in terms of that. But my sense would be is that If you wanted to, this is just my overall sense. If you wanted to be up to date all the time on police, we'd have to be constantly testing police, right? Constantly doing that. And I just want to, I mean, just to be honest, we're a three-man team here. You know what I mean? There's three of us, and Marianne does the majority of that work, and Marianne also, does the majority of the health plan, and so I don't think it's feasible for a three-person team to do that level of testing when you have, we have to hire, admin, on a fairly regular basis kind of thing. You know what I mean? So you tests are tests are tests. So an admin test takes about the same amount of time, maybe a little bit less, but about the same amount of time as a police test. And so even in a small town, you're constantly testing because you're majority civil service employees here. So that's a long way for me to say to you that, I just don't know if it's feasible for us to do that, but I will tell you that we do our darndest. I would say the laterals are a way that we have very quickly and successfully brought people in. But you live by the sword, you die by the sword. They steal our laterals just as much as we steal other laterals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Sure. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Michael, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Lainey. Michael Barker, Board of Finance. First, I want to say thank you, Elaine, for that line. That was really interesting, and I think it's a good place for us to focus some attention on. Just as a follow-up, Tom, I wanted to ask about the legal notices line, this $1,000. I think this is for advertising for positions. Is that right?
Yeah. Can you? Which are you talking about?
Sorry, it's 54551 5501.
01. Yep. Gotcha.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, that essentially, pays for us to put things on. We rarely do LinkedIn, but more like CCM and things like that.
Yeah, it just occurs, I run a $5 million nonprofit. We spend more money posting jobs than $1,000 a year on a regular basis, even during COVID. And I wondered if there was any sense to thinking about an ROI positive investment in recruiting or posting in that regard that might have an effect on our applicant pool, particularly with regard to officers, but other open positions. And I just wonder what your point of view was on that.
Yeah, so it's funny because Marianne and I had a long conversation about this exact topic, and the general idea has been to try to be very conservative, to save money and be efficient, right? And just this year, we have gone out to repost two major positions because. Well, we're public here, so let's just say we just went and reposted. Okay, we wanted to expand the pool, and so I think you are correct that there is a little bit of that is that we go to the places where we kind of get free services, but we pay for membership and we kind of get the free postings, right? So we're like. LinkedIn is expensive and Indeed is expensive, those things. And so we don't really do those unless you get one of the big old positions, right? So the answer is that, it would definitely expand our pool. It would cost you money. And it's not, in my opinion, it's not a small number. I mean, if you go into that world, you're going to start spending multiples of that $1,000 very quickly. And a lot of what we hire, if you take police, it is rare that the big positions come up here in Trumbull, right? I mean, you've had a weird world where you're placed, HR and you're placed DPW over the last few years, right? But for the most part, I think people generally stay here. And I don't know if it's money well spent for, and I just use this out of the blue, a rec coordinator or something like that, when we can funnel into the rec coordinator association, right? So the answer is, I could certainly widen all the pools. It will cost you a lot. It will be a very severe uptick.
Thank you.
Any other questions for human resource? Then we'll move on to employee benefits on page 109. That's Maria and Tom. I actually have a question in this when you're ready, Maria.
Okay, so fringe benefits, obviously the larger ones are the FICA is based on salaries, and I will have to give you a decrease to put in because as we, towards the end of the budget process, we cut some overtime, which affected the FICA. And I'll give you an amount to reduce the FICA by $6,400. Medical insurance, medical went based on our broker's estimate. It's a 4% increase. So it's reflected in here, and we reflected the increase also for any new positions or positions that were not filled. So, and the police officers, they have the vacancies and everything else related to the medical and dental. The workers' comp, we reduced it this year because we have settled some very large claims, and Tom can speak to that. And we have enough in reserve that now we should be able to start reducing the yearly cost because of the fact that the claims have slowed down, and we have about $2.9 million in reserve. So we should be okay with that. I don't know if you have specific questions on claims and if Tom can talk to that at all. I don't know.
If you
Go ahead.
If you want me to do just very generally, yeah, when I came in, Maria and I had a meeting very early on, and we discovered that like places like DPW were being severely impacted. They were paying overtime to cover lots of folks out, that people that just weren't coming back. And you had, you know, like the mechanics, it was like almost as if they weren't, almost the entire department was out, and we were severely handicapping ourselves. So Marie and I got together, we talked to Vicky, we decided that we really need to focus, laser focus on moving some of these folks that weren't going to come back to work off the books. And so that has led to, I mean, it was not cheap. The law doesn't allow you to get out cheap these things, but I think we did a good job of negotiating, and I pat Maria on the back for, Maria was very tight with the dollars, and I think we got out, and we have very good representation with Kerma and our lawyer, and I think we got out relatively cheap. The word cheap will never be used for some of these elements, but relatively cheap. And what that has done is that has opened up our world a little bit for next budget cycle. So you're starting to even, I can already tell you definitively, if you were to talk to George Estrada, he'll tell you there's massive impacts in his department, and in terms of just functioning. And you will see what Maria's talking about is that you really are opening up a world where you could save a couple bucks next year on the budget, just based on the fact that we don't have that level of high dollar people out on comp.
Yeah, some of those public work people that were on the workers' comp, they were out for a year or two. So now that we settle them, they'll be out of our pool completely. The other large items, I don't know if you want to talk about, well, the police pension and the town pension, the ADC, which is used to be referred to as the ARC, that went up slightly. Well, not slightly. The police went up 300,000, almost 300,000, and the town actually went down slightly. There was a actuarial evaluation done in July 2020. We did reduce the discount rate from 7.5 to 7.25. We kept all the other assumptions the same. At some point, we'll have to check into the mortality tables. They have to be changed. So that's the next assumption that we'll have to look at. Unemployment, obviously, it went up, and we don't know at this point what the impact will be from the COVID unemployment. We are still getting reimbursements from the state. We don't know how long that will be now that they have another $300, and I don't know how long that takes back to, is it 12 months or longer? Tom, do you know?
I thought it was through September. That's just off the top of my head. I don't know particularly, but I thought they cut it back to September.
So that increases their benefit, but that one gets reimbursed from the federal government.
Right, and not to interrupt Maria, but we spent during the early days of the CARES Act, Maria and I and Dan Martin, we were very aggressive in terms of seeking out reimbursement for our unemployment expenses. I will tell you that the process that was created for reimbursement of unemployment through the federal government and the state is as awful of a process as I've ever been involved in. And so we jumped through a lot of hoops, and I'm not sure if, Maria, have we seen dollar even one yet? And any of that stuff? I mean,
Yeah, I've seen some, but we're trying to even figure out their statement, because they're supposed to give us a credit with the statement, the monthly statement, and we're still trying to reconcile that. It's been very difficult to deal with them.
I mean, for the most part, almost every single person that was claiming unemployment was not working for us because of the pandemic. And so we had to justify each one as being a pandemic related issue to get reimbursement. And that's, so I did that part of it. And it was a lot of work, but I mean, it was real dollars coming back to Trumbull. So we did everything we could to try to squeeze those dollars.
There's a couple people with hands up, and I have a follow-up question from this morning for you, Maria. As far as if we were to make adjustments in the EMS, the adjustments in the salary account that we were discussing in executive session, that did not include their fringe benefits and stuff. So what would the impact be on that?
I would have to calculate that. So in their budget, they have the 2% increase like everybody else. And if we increase for the steps, then we'll have to determine what those steps are, plus the benefits related to that. And I think the benefits would just be the FICA benefit. Because if they're already entitled to, well, they're per diem, so they're not entitled to medical. So I think they're just part-timers.
Okay.
You have some full-timers there, but yeah, the majority, all the EMTs are per diem right now.
So yeah, so if they're already full-timers and they're getting the medical benefit, the only impact would be just the FICA on all of them. So we can calculate that if need be. If that's the plan, we can calculate that.
I was just curious what the impact would be. Mark Mascola, then Marty, then Elaine.
Hi, Mark Mascola, Board of Finance. Hey, Tom, how are you? And maybe probably a better question for Maria. So I see the discount rate on the pension plan reduced. Is there a asset return assumption also in the actuarial calculation? Long-term rate of return?
That is the assumption. That is the assumption, from the 7.5 to 7.25. Yeah.
No, it says discount rate. That's different than asset return rate. That's the discounting the liability back. I'm assuming there's assets in the fund, in the plan?
Yeah, there are. Yeah,
and what's the assumption on that? What's the assumption on that growth rate? That's a different assumption than the discount rate, I think.
I think they use that interchangeable. If I'm yeah.
Can you follow up? Because I mean, generally what's happened in some of these plans is, discount rates come down, but the expected return on the asset, depending on the mix, of the assets that, what they're invested in, that's also been coming down, which is kind of a double whammy in terms of your funding and your pension liability. So I'd be interested to know that.
Well, according to the actuarial report, the increase was attributed to a decrease in the assumed discount rate from 7.5 to 7.25. In the absence of the discount rate change, that would actually be a decrease.
Yeah, that's the discount rate. I'm still looking for the asset return rate, but you can come back to me when you have an opportunity to find it.
Yeah, they use the same one, but okay, I will.
Okay, and then the other question I had was on the defined, sorry, Lanny, one more question.
That's my fault.
On the defined contribution plan. So looks like we match up to 7%. Is there a vesting period to be eligible to retain the employer town match, or is it just you get it automatically?
Initially, there was a 6-month waiting period, and there was a vesting percentage for the many years they were in. I believe it was 20% for the first year or first 2 years, and then it went up to 40, 60, 80, and 100%, I believe, at 5 years. I think they changed that waiting period from 6 months to day one, if I'm not mistaken, Tom.
Yes, and then if you leave in middle of a year, and Maria schooled me on this one recently on an issue, if you leave middle of a year, we do an hour calculation and you get a certain percentage based on the number of hours you work up to 1,000. And once you get to 1,000, you get 100%.
And you need to stay employed for 5 years to be able to retain the employer match?
100%. If you want 100% match, you have to work 5 years, otherwise it's a prorated rate, 20%.
It's a rate, okay. So another option to think about in terms of retention or recruitment. Anyway, thanks.
Marty.
Yeah, thanks. This is Marty Isaac. I was going to ask similar, just so I understand. I presume that 7% is competitive with all other towns out there. That's just the going rate for municipal employees, or do we stand out in that regard?
So without having done, I didn't do a survey, but my experience with the other towns is that 7% actually is a reasonable sum. I've seen 7.5 to 8 in some places, and I've seen 6. So, we're not in the public sector. That is not out of the realm.
Yeah, I think what would be interesting at one point, even for just town people to understand, is mapping out what a salary in a town like ours is worth. When you add in all the gross benefits, what's that equate to kind of in private industry? Is $60,000 town salary equivalent to $80,000 private salary, when you add in everything? Because I think it would be helpful for people to understand where that stands. But thank you for the 7%. The other question I had was on pensions, just briefly, Maria, I just want to make sure I understand. I know we went from 7.5 to 7.25 this year. What did you say that quarter point was worth roughly 250,000 per year in ARC on the police one, but it didn't seem to be equal to that in the town one, or I guess it was, we were just going further and further down in the town. Can you just elaborate on that for a moment?
Well, I think a part of it is because the fact that we closed both of these plans to new hires back a while ago.
Yeah.
I think the amortization rate for the police is lower. For the town is 25 years, and I think for the police is more like 15 years, I think. And I could get more details on that.
So my question is, if you could come back, I just want to understand if another quarter point was taken away on both the police one and the town one, what does that do to ARC each year?
I would have to have the actuaries come up with that.
It's okay. It's not a budget question, so it's for future. I just wanted to understand.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Elaine?
Yeah, Marty, just for an aside, one of the problems may be that the police pension is significantly better funded than the town pension. So the actuaries are trying to make up the shortfall. And Maria, I think one is 80% funded and one is 38%, something like that.
Correct.
Yeah, the police is 80%, the town is 44%, 45% funded.
So they're making up a bigger gap, which they have to. So any change doesn't necessarily change the ARC as drastically in the one pension as it does in the other. Because you have a much bigger shortfall. And their goal is to make that shortfall up within a reasonable number of years.
Yeah, you're right, although it's counterintuitive to me. So I guess thinking out loud, so the one that's 80% funded, the quarter point, looking at this, looks like it cost us 250,000 more per year. So just intuitively, I would have thought it would go the other way, but.
Yeah, but the benefits in the police pension are significantly better than the benefits in the town pension. They are not equal by a long stretch.
Yeah, I just need to see the math. It confuses me why the quarter point in the police one was, yeah, I'll wait for the math. I just don't understand it.
Okay. My question to Maria and Tom, under the CARES Act, companies who had employees out sick for COVID were reimbursed the COVID expense directly, or the COVID illness up to, I think it was 2 weeks and $10,000. And the refund or the reimbursement was immediate because it reduced what we had to send in employer taxes. Was the town eligible for something similar, or if someone was out sick, did they just use up their sick time?
So they were able to use the CARES Act time, but and again, Maria have to back me up on this one, but I think that towns and governments were not reimbursed because you get reimbursed for the payroll tax, right? And so we didn't, Maria, is that right?
That's correct.
So we didn't get any reimbursement whatsoever.
But you pay payroll tax, you pay with Social Security. I mean, that's what mine got reimbursed out of.
We
Yeah, I'm
didn't get
trying
any
to,
reimbursement.
yeah, there was no reimbursement for government entities. I'm pretty sure of that. We certainly
We
could
can
look.
double check that, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyone who was out with COVID, you were forced to pay for it, but not have any kind of reimbursement. So it was additional sick time.
That essentially how it worked out was to be, yeah, it was like additional sick time.
Okay.
It didn't have, I think, a bottom line effect, only because we were paying folks to work from home, right? And so it had an effect on productivity, right? Things like that. And what it did was it sometimes left some sick time in the bank on the table at the end of the day, and I think that will come home to roost at some point. But
right, because they'll be using it additional. Okay, so they did it differently.
The time we got reimbursed for is any overtime related to COVID.
Okay. See, in companies, it was different. So if I had a payroll and I had to pay someone, whatever it was, $5,000 that week, then my tax liability that I had to send in on my 941 is reduced by that equal amount. Now, there were obviously restrictions. It had to be the employee themselves sick. I needed doctor's notes and, all that. But you ended up just having to give the time.
Yeah, we ate it essentially. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions for human resources or benefits? Okay, thank you. I'd like to just do one little quick adjustment in the schedule. I saw Kevin Bova is on for purchasing, but I also saw that Cheryl Bauman is with us and she's hanging out. I'd like to skip and take care of the Nature Commission on page 7 first, if that's okay.
I'm wrapped.
You're all set, Tom. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good
Bye.
afternoon. Cheryl, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Whoops.
Oh, there you are. Now you have a picture. Excellent.
Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay. Do you want to take us through your department really quick?
Sure. Emily Sheffrin is the chair of the Nature Commission, but she couldn't make this earlier time, so that's fine. I'm going to speak for the Nature Commission and for the patrons of the Trumbull Nature and Arts Center. So we have the same story as everyone else as far as COVID goes. Everything was going smoothly until March 11th of last year. And but we were able to implement last year some virtual programs and then limited in-person programs. So those moved forward. So as things have progressed, we are doing more programs and getting more publicity. I don't know if everyone saw us on the cover of the Connecticut Post the Saturday before last. We were all happy about that. We had with our maple sugaring, so that was great. We had a nice big article on there. And we also have, TNAC also has a page on the CT State's tourism website, ctvisit.gov. It has its own dedicated page, and we're getting a lot more visitors from across the state. Trumbull's a little bit on the map with us, so we're very happy with that. A lot more people are aware of us. So we're getting more followers and new visitors that we haven't seen before. A lot more interest. So even though it's COVID, we're moving forward. As far as education goes, we just found out from the new science director, Liz Doherty, as of last year, that Trumbull is going to be allowing us to instruct the children on environmental education programs, not at TNAC this year, but we're going to be going to the schools. They're at school outside programs for every second grader in town. So we'll be doing our beaver dam, our beaver habitats, our seed modeling, seed dispersal program, and lead instructor Mark Zaneri will be taking the students on a walk outside, to look at biodiversity on their school grounds. So they're having field trips, but a little bit different. And the teachers, everyone's very excited because outdoors is where to be now. And they're getting the education, and it's something different, and it's different and normal at the same time. So we're happy about that. And fundraising, we received a $10,000 grant from our new neighbors, Amazon. In February, they have a new program called Neighbor Good, where they're doing things for their neighbors, and they're directly across the street from us. So we welcome that partnership. Last year, we again got a $10,000 grant from the Henkel Corporation, another wonderful Trumbull company. So, and they're thinking about doing it again this year. So that's great. And Mallet and Worth Family Foundations, also local givers we've gotten from them. As far as infrastructure things, I know this is a BOF hearing, so we did meet virtually with George Estrada and Dimitri Paris a few weeks ago. And the bottom line of that is George loves us. We're happy about that. He's saying nice things, and he would like to do a walk around the property in the summer, spend an hour or two there and see how we move forward, to improve things, to make environmental education better for everyone. So that's it. Oh, and all the programs that we have, of course, everyone is wearing masks, everyone's socially distant, everybody's been just happy to be outside. So they're cooperative. We haven't had any issues with that. So that's it. Questions?
Anybody have any questions for the Nature Commission? Mary?
I just want to say you guys have done a phenomenal job, because I've been kind of keeping up with through Sustainable that we've been, checking in. So very amazing during COVID, all that you guys have been able to offer and do. And, the site's been fantastic. And then just curious, do you have any plans for the $10,000 grant, or is that still up in the air?
With Amazon, well, Henkel's is earmarked somewhat for some scholarships and for technology programs. So we're developing new programs with that. And as far as Amazon, that's going to go to operations, which is always underfunded, and we very much welcome operational funding. So that is where Amazon is going. Yeah. Thanks. And thank you very much, Mary.
Christine, I'm sorry, I put your hand down by accident.
Oh, no, that's okay. My question was the same as Mary's, but I will use this moment to concur also what she said, that you guys have run some great programs. My kids and I have done a few of the programs during COVID. We did the wreath making in the wintertime. And then we also joined the other program that Mark led on Groundhog Day, which was super fun.
Yeah. Yeah, Groundhog Day is actually featured as one of 8 things to do on the weekend throughout Connecticut. Trumbull Nature and Art Center was right there on Channel 8. So another publicity opportunity for Trumbull, bringing people in town, letting them know that we're here. So I think we offer something to the community, and yeah, we're happy about it. So yeah, thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you. Thanks for waiting, Cheryl. Appreciate your flexibility.
No problem. Take care, everyone.
No problem. Eddie appreciates it also. All right. So moving on, let's go to purchasing. Mr. Bova, welcome. Page 71 in your big books.
Yes. Hi, how are you? You hear me, Lee?
Yes, I was going back on mute because Eddie's decided that he's had enough of our meetings today.
That's fine.
Go ahead. You want to walk us through the request?
Yeah, so purchasing is pretty much simple for most line items that you look there that we have for education, continuous education, public notices. That goes up and down. This year's a little down because of COVID and other reasons, which is going to be my big speech today. And Maria's going to roll her eyes, and Vicky's going to bite her tongue. But we're gonna discuss the situation, just so it's recorded here in town council. I would like that. And that being said, as 140 municipalities in the town of Trumbull and state of Connecticut, Trumbull is the only one that does purchasing throughout the whole entire town and Board of Ed over the threshold dollars for bidding, contracts, insurances and stuff that they need to keep the schools going. And I think I explained this before. If you really look back, and it's not Vicky's administration, it's before that, purchasing description is a purchasing agent, a specialist, a town clerk, and a buyer. That's 3.5 people. And since I'm vested in town of Trumbull, I said this from day one when Lane was in there also, you know, I give a lot of effort and above and beyond, and I don't need any kudos from everybody. You know, everybody else can take it, but I've been explaining that it's never been funded or staffed from day one when my incumbent left. And we try to get the overtime in there, and it's not a smooth 40-hour, 52-week job. It goes up and down. There's roller coaster hours. And that being said, we really have to concentrate on the Board of Ed side. And I'm asking for something from there. It's probably not Board of Finance, according to Maria or Vicky or Town Council, but I want it noted and recorded. We have to watch them on everything they purchase and how they follow the practices. Previous administrations been pretty good. We used to slap their hands. We got them on track. There's been a interim Board of Ed purchasing over there, trying to help them with all the services we have, all the products we have to maintain and keep things going over there. It was kind of ignored. A new administration came in, 140 emails went to them without any responses on how to keep things going and keep things safe and all the great things you want to say about schools. And us purchasing in town looks over that. Again, we're the only, situation where the town does Board of Ed and the town side. And that fully staffed, if we did benchmarks, which we have done throughout the state of Connecticut for union negotiations purposes, we did the benchmarks. We did internal audits for it also. Purchasing is not really fully funded or fully staffed, but I did, after a while, Vicky did, and you guys have awarded me a great person, and I got half a person who does much more than 19 hours or 25 hours worth of work a week. So for 1.5 people, we hold our head above water and we keep going. And there's times that we need more hours. And right now, all that hours that I'm doing is getting approved through Maria. She's not questioning it, but it is COVID, so that might stop someday. So as we did this union negotiations, there was 26 people in our, just give you some background. There's 26 people in our union, and we came up with how many hours we spent overtime and comp time, and we came up with this number. And there was 9 of us that were department heads who asked to be compensated for X amount of more dollars and to get off hourly and comp and be non-exempt, to be salary like the rest of the union was. The union was split. There's a long story between how that happened, and there was an addendum to the union that wasn't done right, but it all went through. So when we did this negotiation, there was an incumbent before Tom in HR who, let's just say wasn't the best person for the town or best interest of anything here, except for the last administration. So he came back and we negotiated, and every time he came back, I don't know if it went to the town, it was no compromise. So we didn't become a fully unionized union. Half of us are salary, half of us aren't. Some got 3 weeks, some didn't, some get an extra week. It's just a mess. So that went nowhere. So to finally get fully.
Listen, Kevin, hold on, Kevin.
Yeah.
So I think we all hear you, but at this point in time, we're really here to discuss your budget. I know you consider this part of your budget conversation, but I think we need to focus on the present budget. I know
Okay,
the
so
issues-
the budget
we
I'm
all-
asking was for a stipend from Board of Ed for doing the work. And to be watching them and to make sure they're following the purchase policies. Obviously, there was a audit. We all know about it. And in their audit came out where some money went. And then also how they weren't following the purchase policies, which is why we need to be involved more. And I think that's what I was asking. My point was to get to that stipend for a salary increase for the purchasing department. So, I mean, there's a lot more history to it. We do a lot of work. I have it written down. It's in my budget. I think I've been asking for a few years. Like I said, we did get the town clerk for purchasing to make things, I think, more even. We would like to have a stipend, and whether that falls on the Board of Ed or not, I like
Maria. Maria, do we accept, or do we have payback from the Board of Ed for the use of the purchasing department? Do we like we do for other departments?
Do we charge back to them? No, we do not. When we do the in-kind that's submitted to the state to request the funding, we do put them in as, you know, a portion of everybody's salary as a cost. So when we get reimbursement from the state, that's considered.
Maria, about how many hours do we take as in-kind for Board of Education for purchasing?
Top of my head, I don't know. I'll have to look at the schedule.
Is this something that we've looked at in the past, charging back to them?
Yes.
You can't, Madam Chair, if I can?
Yep.
You can't get rid of me.
That's okay. We're glad to have you, Tom.
Yeah, so I appreciate, I came in midway through Mr. Bova, what he's talking about. But so that's what he's talking about is a mandatory subject of bargaining in Connecticut, and you cannot discuss that. It has to be by law discussed between me or the first selectman and the union president, the union leadership. So I just want to, everybody should be very careful here. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm for or against or think it's a great idea or a terrible idea. I'm not weighing in at all on that. I'm just saying that the process needs to be followed, and the process has to go through the union in me.
Okay, I'm good with that. Does anybody have any questions in the purchasing department based on the numbers that are in the book?
Well, this is Marty Isaac.
Hi, Marty.
And Tom, if I'm asking this question incorrectly, I should, and I can't answer it, that's fine. To be honest, I don't understand, Kevin, what the specific ask is. So if there was a specific number or a specific thing, can I ask that, Tom, or is that?
So would you rather not? Yeah.
I don't know what we're asking for.
If there is, it can't be an official ask unless it comes from as an official leadership thing. So, I mean, my guess would be that maybe Kevin has expressed somewhere in the budget that, but I wouldn't, we can't open up any negotiations between this group and Kevin.
Very good.
Hey, Lainey, to answer your question on the percent that's charged to in-kind for purchasing is 30%.
Okay, so a third of that department.
Yes.
Okay.
And just so we're clear, I understand what Tom said, and that's great that, maybe he even acknowledged it, maybe he would listen, or maybe Vicky would listen. But I'm just telling you where it went last time. It didn't go any farther than Tom's incumbent, and it was after negotiations, even our own person that represented our union wasn't happy and wanted me to go to Vicky to talk about it, but I didn't, because it's just not worth the fight. But I like to have it noted, at least Tom's taking notice, and maybe something will come of it. But, just so you know, and it won't happen, the services for Board of Ed will not stop because we don't get compensated, or we should, or, we're just trying right now with the Board of Ed to try to get them back on track. And it's a tooth pull right now. We're trying to get them. Yep.
As far as your services with the Board of Ed, how long do you estimate in the number of years that we've been providing that help to the Board of Education as far as purchasing?
So like what Maria was saying, the number of bids, we did an audit on it, how many we do for them, and watching the purchases over 10,000 and the emails and I'm over there a lot. So I would say 30% of my work is with them when it's really going.
Okay, I'll have some more questions about that, but not
Sure.
pertaining to the budget. Perhaps I
fine.
can send them to your department afterwards and follow up from our board. In the meantime, as far as we are from the numbers in the budget, everything that the first selectman has recommended, I think there was only one. There was only one reduction, if I'm on the right page.
Which was what? Which was
A reduction of $1,000 comp time in lieu of overtime.
like I said, the rate we're going, I could easily put, if I really work the hours and put them in, whether Maria agreed, I still have to do them no matter if Maria approved it or not. I still have to work it to get the work done, so the services wouldn't be affected. Is the real number probably might be $10,000-$15,000 in overtime to really get it done if we're really going to put the effort into it.
So would you think that, are you asking for another half-time position? Are you looking to make the part-timer a full-timer? What is it that your ask is?
Just to let us work the overtime we needed, to get the job done, and that it could be shared within the purchasing department with myself and my assistant. But it's more than $1,000. It's well over $1,000. I mean, we've done this in 7 years now. I think it's been recorded. If we really put
So it's not enough for another position, but it would be able to be covered in overtime?
Correct. That'd be correct. Because again, it's not a steady, 52-week, 40 hours. There's weeks that are 70, 80 hours. Like right now is an unfortunate time with about 9 bids that need to get out. And I can't be there right now, but I will be next week. We'll get them out. It's going to take a lot of effort to get those bids out and back in, and especially for the Board of Ed to have the work done for June. So it's not going to be, just a 40-hour week to get these to get them out, and then any town services that need to be done. And just so maybe this will help the budget too. Is there's no facilities on Board of Ed, and there's no facility director on town. I know there's budget.
Yeah.
And
we're going to stick to the purchasing department here. Okay. We'll be with Board of Ed again on Thursday night. So if there's nothing else on these 2 pages here, does anybody have any specific questions for Kevin on his budget? Okay. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
All right. So that takes care of purchasing. So we have health department doing that. Lynn Steinbrück, I see you are on the line, and we're moving on to nursing, senior wellness, and health on page 336.
Hi, I'm just trying to start my video here. How are you?
We're fine, thank you. Okay. Thanks for being patient and waiting for us.
Yep, no problem. No problem. So, all right, I gotta put my budget hat on, okay? Take my COVID hat off, put my budget hat on here. Getting into that mode. So, all right. So the senior wellness nurse, I'm not asking for anything to change at all. We still have our senior wellness nurse, even though the senior center is closed. She's been kind of doing everything that we ask her to in the name of COVID. And she's been helping with the health department. She's been helping in the schools, and she's been helping most recently with our contact tracing initiative that we're doing in order when they reduce the quarantine from 14 days to 10 days, we now need to track symptoms for an additional 4 days after people come back off of quarantine. So, that's what she's been doing. And also working the vaccination clinics. But I'm not asking for anything major. She hopes to start going back to the walking club once people are feeling that they're fully vaccinated and can start meeting up again. So she was doing that at the mall, which is a good place for that. So that's something that's going to be her first step back into kind of meeting up with her people out in the community. I think you're muted unless I'm not.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay. Any specific questions about the numbers in Lynn's budget for nursing, senior, and wellness? If not, let's move on to school nurses on page 379, please.
So as you can imagine, the school nurses have been very busy. Where it's a busy job to begin with, but it's beyond busy this year. And the biggest thing that I'm asking for this year is historically, we have lagged behind other districts in our pay, and we have lost nurses to other districts. And to this year, well, not to the other districts this year, but people left, number one, because of the COVID in the building, and 3 people left at the beginning of the year, and then 2 people left mid-year to go work elsewhere. But historically speaking, we've been one of the lower ones in the neighboring towns. And so I had asked for an increase in salary to try to catch up to where we are, because I have to hire people at such a low rate. And then it just trails on, and the nurses are not part of a bargaining unit, so they don't, they only get the benefit of the, whatever the non-union people get.
Okay. Questions? Do you know what districts they've left to go to?
The Weston, Monroe, and Fairfield.
And how much significant change in the salary?
Yeah, Weston is kind of ridiculously significant. The further on down the line you go through Fairfield County, the higher the salaries go. But Weston, I believe it was at least $5 an hour more. And then of course, the benefits are different. There's different, some towns get 5 personal days, Trumbull only gets 2. The difficult thing with school health is that there is no identical model to compare it to. But so, we've created spreadsheets with between the number of days a year that people work, the number of days off they get paid for, the number of personal time, sick days, cost of benefits and stuff like that. And we do lag behind across the board.
Marty?
Hi, Marty Isaac. So I hear what you're saying. It would be helpful, though, to see the spreadsheet, I guess, with the surrounding towns.
Okay,
So,
I did submit that when I presented to the first selectman. What I developed was.
Let me just cut you off for 1 second. I just say, because I don't have that. I'm not sure the Board of Finance has it. So
no,
maybe it's a follow-up that could get.
Probably don't. I can send
maybe
it
as
to
a follow-up that can get distributed. And for me, what I'd like to be able to see are, the salary and the other benefit elements that you're talking by, the 5 or 6 surrounding towns. Please don't cherry pick, so people that are in close proximity to us, that's what I want to understand. Just so we can have that laid out, that would be very helpful.
Yes. And then I also took a look at not only outside of our school system, but inside our school system, where the people in the building that the nurses colleagues that she works with, the custodians, the secretarial staff, and starting teachers. Starting teachers start at $32 an hour. A brand new person out of school with school nursing, I have to start at $29 an hour. So I can share those numbers with you as well, but you have access to those anyway.
Great. I'm most concerned about the direct comparison with the other nurses, but happy to look at that as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll add that to our follow-up list to look for that information. Any other questions in regards to school nurses? Okay, moving on to non-public school nurses, page 389. Lynn?
It would be the same. It's just a different branch of our budget. We have the 4 private school nurses that are supplied under the EDO 17, the like services. And those nurses also are just, another school nurse in another building.
But they make the same rate that the public schools do. Okay. Any questions on that? All right. right. Moving on to the counseling center, the page 351, please.
Sure. So the counseling center, we're in the process of, we didn't ask for any big changes or anything significant to the counseling center this year. No new positions. We are in the process of hiring into the vacant position that had been vacated at the end of the year. And then when there was a hiring freeze, we did not hire into it. And through, you know, the process that is the civil service hiring process, we now finally have our 5 candidates. And so we're setting up interviews in the next 2 weeks.
Any questions on the counseling center? If nobody else has any questions, have you seen an uptick in usage or people accessing the counseling center during COVID?
So, you know, there definitely within the last month or so, there's been a big surge, so much so that they're really chomping at the bit to get this new person started. But it has been definitely steady. They've done a combined in-person with, we have a new telehealth portal that we've been using through our scheduling system. But it's been busy. It's been very busy.
And do you think with this other person that you'll be adequately staffed to handle your needs?
I mean, I do feel that the numbers will even off. I mean, it remains to be seen how COVID plays out and how the pressures and stresses from what our current state of affairs is, whether it's financial, emotional. I mean, I think we'll see the ripple effect of this for a very long time.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate your patience in waiting for us.
Well, thank you. Is that
all
it?
right? So I believe that is.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So looking at our list, we have the Golf Commission. They weren't scheduled for another little bit. And then we have debt services and revenues. Maria, do you want to talk about those and then come back to golf? Do we want to try to reach the golf?
I reached them. They want me to, I could call them if you like.
Yeah, why don't we see if they can come on and then we can kind of tie things up. It looks like we could be done around 3 or 3:15. Does anybody need a 5-minute break while they're getting on?
I can get a coffee. Why not? Sure.
All right. Why don't you guys
take one while you're up, Marty?
How do you like yours?
All right. Everybody just take a couple minutes and then we'll come right back.
Thanks, Lenny.
All right.
Hello,
I see Don.
everybody.
I see Don's on the call. Hi, Don.
Hope everybody is hanging in there, having a great day, right?
I hope so. Bill, are we all set with the live stream? Excellent. Okay, so for those just coming back, we took a quick break and we're here now to move on. Board of Finance budget hearing for the 2021-22 municipal budget. And our last department of the day before we talk about debt services and revenues is the Golf Commission. And we have Don Esbach with us. We're on page 481 for the enterprise fund at the back of our budget books. Don, how close are we to opening day?
Well, a week or two. We've run into some difficulties with a new computer system and a couple other matters. So we're not going to be the first course to open in Connecticut, but we'll get there.
I'm going to have my husband address all his complaints directly to you then.
That would be fine. I'll just shut my phone off.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So talk to us about your budget, sir.
Is Joe here?
Joe should be on his way in.
Yeah, he said he was coming. Yeah.
All right. Want us to wait just a moment?
Yeah, just wait a moment. Yeah, there he is.
Here he comes. But Vin for the win with the background. I'm getting tired.
I don't know. I think Mary's got the win.
Oh,
Yeah,
I didn't see that.
Thank you. I won.
Where would you like us to begin?
But sir, if I kill all the golfers.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, Joe. You better stop the jokes quick. We're getting punchy. It's been a long day.
Well, you guys are moving right along. It's 45 minutes before. That's great.
Yeah.
We're nothing if
Zoom
not
efficiency.
efficient. Joe, you want
where
to
would
walk
you
us
like
through
to
the
begin?
budget?
Yep, sure. Our budget is fairly flat from last year with the exception of the minimum wage increase for our seasonal salaries. And additionally, we have a few projects that we are starting, mainly just some maintenance things that were ignored over the past few years that will improve upon this year. One of the big things that we're trying to do this year and moving forward is as our bonds decrease, using that money that is reallocated in our budget to invest in projects and equipment that's needed for the course.
We also have a new golf cart lease, which is a couple $1,000s in addition. So we'll have new golf carts this year. And we purchased new software for our point of sale and our tee time reservation system. So I'll just throw that in.
Yes, but the dial in like you were scheduling, trying to win concert tickets didn't go very well. A lot of swearing in my house.
Yes, the system is all online and it's automated and we can track who logged in and which tee time they wanted as soon as they click on it. So it should be much more efficient for everybody.
Excellent. Any specific questions about their line items? Okay. That looks pretty straightforward then. We appreciate you guys coming out a little bit early today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So it looks like we are officially down to debt services and revenues. Maria, what would you like to talk about?
Okay, so we're done. Good.
Yeah, that's it, sir.
All right, adios.
So we could discuss the debt service, which we can't get out of, unfortunately. On page 467 and 68, you'll see the debt service for the general government, for the entire town projects, excluding the Board of Ed. Board of Ed in the 06 has their own budget for principal and interest debt payments. The total debt payments are, I normally send out a schedule with which I'll forward after this meeting, the full debt schedule for 5 years. This year, the entire debt service is $13,000,007. That includes the Board of Ed projects and all the town projects. And I'll send to you the amortization schedule over the next 5 years. Anything specific we want to talk about? We are currently going to go to the town council for approval to do a refunding, which the plan is where we're projecting $1 million savings. Unfortunately, we can't show it in this budget and reduce the debt service directly because we're not there yet and we don't know how much it will be and will materialize. So it will be reflected in revenue when you vote on the mill rate.
In preparation for our budget hearings, I did have a chance to speak with Matt. Why can I never think of his last name, Maria? Yeah, and Joe Fozzie, and they were both pretty confident in that number. So that was some good news.
Yeah.
Any questions on debt services? Elaine?
Maria, I was just trying to pull the total off the Board of Ed. So they've got, if I'm reading this correctly, $4,888,500 in obligation bonds and 1.6 million
in interest
and 20,000 in short term.
Yes, for a total of 6,500,000. Yeah.
So they have 6,500,000 on the Board of Ed side.
Yes.
And we have 7 million
7.2 approximately, yeah.
Yeah, 7.2 on our side. Okay. And so over last year, that's an increase of about 400,000 on the town side and about, well, one went up, one went down. Their interest went down, but their general obligations went up.
Yeah, it's about 300,000, 330,000 net.
On their side?
On the net on the both the town and the Board of Ed.
On both.
With each or both together?
Both. The Board of Ed actually went down from 6,000,005 to 6,465,000. And the town went from 6,811 to 7,195,000.
Right. So town went up about 300,000.
Yep.
And the BOE went down. It's hard, which I'm trying to find the page where that is because it's in the sub. I'm not sure how we broke it out separately. Here it is.
Okay. The Board of Ed is on page
374.
74, and the town is on page 468.
Right. So they went from 488 down to 480. And they went from, yeah, if I look, Maria, if I look on page 374,
yeah.
I've got their interest going from 2021 at 4,888,500 down to 4,089,000. So they're down only about 80,000. And then the 1,615,000 goes up to 1,644,000. So they go up about 30, down about 80. So their change is about minus 50,000.
Yeah, around that.
Okay, roughly 50. And
Yeah.
then the town's change is up roughly 3. So that's how you get 350. You get the 300 overall increase. Okay. Yeah, I would like to see those tables, please.
Yes, I will send the 5-year schedule.
Thank you.
Everybody following along? Anybody else have any questions on that? Maria? Next, you want to go to revenues?
Okay.
Have a quick discussion.
In the front of your binder, there's, I'm not sure if you can see the revenue section where it's got the 2021, 2022 mill rate. And basically we projected, if you go on the summary page, we projected the revenues for this fiscal year, but you know, it's really difficult to do that since we didn't have a normal year. We did the best estimate we could at this point in time. As we get closer to the setting of the mill rate, we'll have hopefully better figures. A few of the programs hopefully will start and we'll see some of those revenues go up. The state revenues remained the same for both years. There were no cuts. The grant list went up slightly, but we had some appeals, so that kind of netted it out, or actually went down further. I'm not sure if you want to go specifically by departments. The section would be town permits and fees is on page 5. Those were the revenues that are mostly fluctuating because of what's going on right now and that programs can't happen and so forth. We're implementing a fee that was discussed several years back about charging the haulers at the transfer station and also anybody that comes in, any taxpayer that comes in that will drop off their garbage at the transfer station not to pay a fee. So I think they're looking into that as well. And we're putting $1 million in the budget. And as I said before, the the plan for the refunding, we are estimated about $1 million savings, which is reflected here.
That's a good question.
Yep.
This is Marty Isaac. On the fee, I would like to know your estimates on that 1 million you were saying between what individuals doing their own versus the service providers are, because I think I'm more an advocate of the individuals not paying that fee. So I just would be curious on what you anticipated that was, and if there was no fee for individual, do you have a guesstimate on how much more individuals would go direct?
George is with us also.
We're currently working on that schedule. We use it based on the last audit that the internal auditor did, but I think we're still working on the details on that.
Okay.
We do
Vicki,
have,
did you want to make a comment about this?
well, we've got George. I asked George to come back onto the meeting. You can talk a little bit about what you talked about before, which was, since this was a first, and I don't know if it was the first time that it was requested a number of years ago, but certainly things have changed in the transfer station in the 4 or 5 years since that request was made. And the biggest change, of course, is in the recycling fees, the amount that we're actually receiving for recycling, which is somewhere in the basement at this point, and the expenses, which have gone in the other direction. So there's about a $600,000 swing. I had Maria do a quick analysis on what we've seen over the last 4 years in the loss of revenue and increased expenses in the transfer station. So George, I'll turn it over to you for a minute if you'd like.
Sure. Just to give you an idea in how the fees actually work, to break them out, we have a blended rate, our cost. This is our cost to dispose of the waste, the tipping fee of $97.16 per ton. That's what it costs us to dispose. And that is made up of the wheelabrator, where we drop on the tipping floor there. That's $64.79 a ton. City carting hauls from our transfer station to there, that's $18 a ton. And the city carting administrative fee running the operations up there calculates out to about $14.37. So that's where I arrive at that 97.16. And I could just give you very broad numbers because, as Maria said, we're trying to crunch all of this and really capture data so that you can have an accurate estimate. But the residential haulers, so this is not fees to at the scale which are residents coming in to pay anything. This is just based on what we see historically on average. It has been around 9,800 tons per year at that scale. So that brings us to just below $1 million just on that level. But there's beyond that, there are other things such as demolition, when people come in to drop demolition, that we really need to look at what the costs are of disposal and being sure that it translates the fees that we're charging, that we currently charge, we always have charged, that those fees at a minimum will cover expenses. So those are the other things that Maria and I are working on, just analyzing, being sure that we've got all the numbers.
Elaine, I'm sorry, George. I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's pretty much that's boiled down, because there's lots of data and lots of conversation that can be had on this, but that kind of is a broad brush at what we're talking about with what the thought process was.
George, why now? A few years ago, they looked at doing this tipping fee, and it just felt like that we'd be passing along the cost to the residents in just another form other than tax. Can you talk a little bit about that and why it's different now?
It's as the first selectman mentioned before, our expenses continue to go up to operate the facility, and it's because the expenses for just simple straight disposal, the recyclables no longer having a market. Now where we were actually receiving revenue to offset the general expenses of the operation, now it's really it's just a black hole. Everything there is a cost. There is very little opportunity for revenue as it is right now. So that $600,000 swing is what the discussion has been. It's never a good time to raise fees to residents. It will never find a good time. So it really comes down to an overall business decision on offsetting costs to, at a very minimum, run a net neutral, just a zero-based budget at the facility. In looking and having discussions with public works directors in other towns, we seem to be the only ones that have a drive-through that's free. Every other municipality has a fee associated with a hauler coming in to dispose of waste. So again, never ever going to be a good time or an easy time to do something like this. But in our exploration of just trying to arrive at a point where the operation doesn't continue to bleed, the only alternative right now that we could come up with in offsetting costs there would be to initiate some sort of fee.
I'm sorry, Elaine?
George, would you give me the breakout again? You said it was 9716 is what you estimate a ton. I know you said 1437 site operations. What were the other two components?
The first one that I gave was the 6479 a ton. That's at Wheelabrator. That's dropping it off at the burn plant. And then the fees to transport from our transfer station to that facility is broken down, and this is a rough number, $18.
Okay.
Per ton.
Okay, so
and the last one is 1437.
Right, I have the 1437. So let me understand something. We have now made a foregone conclusion that we put $1 million in the budget that we are going to collect in fees for garbage disposal, correct? This is a foregone conclusion.
Is that question for me?
Whoever put it in.
It's certainly something we're discussing.
Well, if we're discussing it, it's already built into the mill rate.
It is at this point.
Okay, so if we let the people who come in not pay, then the people who use haulers, because if anybody believes that the haulers won't pass every red cent on to the people they're picking it up, I got a bridge I'll sell you in Brooklyn. So people—
That's up for discussion as well, Elaine. And George, you want to touch on that, please?
Tell them they can't put it in?
No, I'm sorry, George.
We've had discussions, extensive discussions on this. I've also met with haulers on this. I do anticipate that they will pass on some of this to the customers. There is increased competition also in town. So there's going to be some sort of balance. I'm sure that it's not going to be just a straight pass-through. I mentioned in the meeting earlier today the cradle to grave ability of the operator, which is City Carting. That firm can very easily be conceived to have an unfair advantage because they're actually a competitor that is now coming into trouble.
George, oh, there you are.
Yes.
You froze, George.
While you're reconnecting, I think one of the things that's kind of important is the last time that it was talked about adding this tipping fee, that a lot of the haulers raised their prices then in anticipation of the fee that never went in. So I'm wondering how that would affect
I actually didn't see that because I actually try to keep track of each of them because there's one and it's a real big sore point with me that is significantly lower than everybody else and refuses to come to certain parts of town. And I have had this conversation with the former director of public works that I believe that the town should use its power to help its residents because we're already paying the tipping fee. We pay it disproportionately because it's part of our taxes. So someone might have a bigger house, but fewer people and less garbage. So my feeling has always been of my taxes, and then I make a decision whether or not I want to go and drag it over myself or I'm willing to pay for it. And I pay based on the number of barrels, not the size of my house. So we already have a skewed system, and it sounds like it's going to get worse. I want to know why one company is almost half what the others charge. And unless Public Works gets into that, or put out one bid. You want to play? Use your power. Put out one bid. Low bidder gets to pick up the whole town. And this is the fee. Decide you want it or you don't. And if you don't want to pay for a hauler, then you drag it over yourself. But if you're going to increase the hauler's tipping fee, then why is it fair that somebody walks in doesn't pay the tipping fee? Now, I grant you that might be a nightmare collecting it, but you sell a sticker. There are a lot of towns that do that. My sticker entitles me to go to the dump all year and bring whatever it is you legally accept, other than potentially demolition. You know, I'm not really sure how they do it because I pull in with a pickup truck that has a company logo on the side and I'm emptying all kinds of stuff. You know, I'm not sure what level of controls. I think it's gotten better, significantly better in the last year, because it is a half a mile from my house. When I need to, I just drop something off. But I also pay somebody all the time. So I think we need a very detailed plan, and I'd like to see the town be our advocate with these haulers, because before they wouldn't even come into different areas of town. They had carved it up in their own little monopoly. Now, if you're lucky, there certainly are two that come up to my section of town, but they charge the same. So what's the difference? I mean, if that's not price fixing, I'm not sure what is. So you are the only one with the power, George, to defend the residents of this town. And I'm concerned that that increase will hit uniformly on people that have, excuse me, small households, but they're picking up one bin, so they're still paying the same. I mean, I think there's a lot of moving parts on this.
This is an area where we really do have to have much more work than we've been able to since I arrived here. But I can tell you, I'll continue because I would like to meet with each of the haulers. I've only met with a couple. And you bring up some good points. It should be, I probably can kind of figure out why they're not going into every corner. And that may be just for them economy of scale, having a route that's more compact, it's more efficient for them. But I totally agree with you. Other things that can possibly be explored is that discussion about one vendor, one price. But there's a lot of work to be done behind that before we could really even go down that path. So
and I think Therese did a lot of work comparing towns. I know she looked at Monroe. I know she looked at Shelton. Yep. I know she looked at Fairfield. And I've never understood that the same haulers that go into Monroe pick up Trumbull garbage, but they pay less than we do. And their disposal is not in their taxes. Those haulers are being charged.
Well, the haulers in Monroe and Easton, they charge a tipping fee. Monroe gets a tipping fee, Easton gets a tipping fee, and I don't believe the haulers are charging, at least what we got in the mail from the hauler that we use, based on some competition that's entering the market here. We get charged less than what Monroe and Easton are charged. They're charged above what we pay.
But Monroe residents can't walk in and drop garbage without paying for it.
I don't know, George, what happens to a Monroe resident when they come in?
they are weighed. They purchase a ticket for a certain weight. So they're Monroe and Easton is paying.
Yeah.
They are charged.
Yeah, and their individual households do not have the tipping fee put in their taxes. It's collected potentially by Monroe from the haulers and then paid to us for whatever their share is. But their individual taxes do not reflect the tipping fee. This is not in the Monroe budget. Because that was one of the things we were looking at when Therese made a very long presentation a couple of years ago about this. So I just want to know if someone's looking out for the Trumbull ratepayers.
Yeah,
Therese,
it's
you're
something.
actually.
I'm sorry. It's something that I will certainly look at. I don't know the legalities. I don't know what we potentially can or cannot do, but that I will commit that I will explore all options.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Teresa's actually on the call. I don't know if she's still listening in.
Yeah.
Teresa, would it be possible for you to send us that report? Can you find it?
Yeah, I have it.
All right, if you would send that out.
Yep,
so
and
people
that
can
was
take a look
the
at what Elaine's
concern.
talking about.
Yeah, that was the concern years ago, is that you're just throwing the townspeople into the hands of these, you know, companies that pick it up and with no control over the price. But I think it's a good idea to bid it.
Okay. Marty?
I don't recall that part of the conversation years ago when this was discussed, but I will look into that.
As far as
back into some minutes of meetings and see if that was discussed at the time that this was proposed by the prior administration.
As far as bidding it, Vicki?
No, about adding this tipping fee to the budget, because it definitely was a proposal about 4 years ago to add this tipping fee to the budget.
Yeah, I'll send everyone the report.
Hi, this is Marty Isaac from Board of Finance. I just wanted to share my point of view on this, and George, I applaud you in terms of the idea, and Vicki, of removing that cost center and letting the services cover that. I think that's, you know, as the market moves around, we should do that. And people that are taking advantage of that service through their haulers, we should net out. The town, in my opinion, should not be subsidizing that piece of that. I don't think that's right. Now, the thing that I am interested in is for people that choose, you know, whether they're for financial need or whatever, that they choose to do this themselves. I'm inclined not to follow, if possible, not to follow on the permit fee and just continue and let them do that. Although I'm curious to think, George, and maybe there's no data here, if we were to go ahead and levy this tipping fee, the $1 million, you know, I don't know, and I agree with some others have said that some of this fee was passed on previously when the fee didn't happen, and there was a concern it might, some fee went through. I'm curious what we think, even if the whole thing was pushed through, how much more direct traffic do you think you would get of homeowners choosing to bypass that and bring their own garbage? Right, because I don't think it would be a significant number personally. And I do think I like having an out for those people that are particularly financially constrained, that as we make this transition and move to cover our cost, for that subset of people that are doing it already, I just as soon let them continue to do it without being hit by this. But I may be unique in that point of view, but that's how I would like to see this played out. So to me, regardless of federal funds coming through or not, I think it's an appropriate switch that the town shouldn't be in the business of subsidizing this, and people should pay their fair share to get rid of their trash. And whether you want 1 can or 3 cans, you deal with what you need to do, and leaving it out for people that are financially constrained that they could go direct. So I just thought I'd share that. Thank you.
But Marty, you're still subsidizing it because the bulk of the fee is in the taxes.
I take out that incremental piece that we're actually underwater for. So,
right. But the 9 million, George, what's your overall disposal fee right now? Because at $97 a ton and 9,800 tons, you're about $9 million? 9.5?
Around 9.7.
9.7. So you're already subsidizing it, Marty, to the
yeah, that's a fair point. Okay, so you're right. We wouldn't be taking the whole piece away.
Right. To me, you're either in or out. Either subsidize it all or don't subsidize it, and then the individuals pay the hauler if they want it, or they buy a permit fee.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm probably not on that side. I'm fine beginning to move in the direction of having people pay more of the fee as opposed to the town paying the whole thing. I think that's right. Particularly as the recycle has changed underneath of us, and that whole market changed. I don't see any reason why the town would eat all of that. That doesn't make sense to me.
Stop. Every time I unclick. Does anybody have any other questions about this? Therese will send out the work she did the last time that this came up. We'll get to look at it a little bit more. Other than that, Maria, do we have anything else to talk about as far as revenue?
Are there any questions in the town permits and fees other than that one? I know there was a talk at the Board of Ed about the tuition revenue. You know, they're incurring the additional expense to send kids to the magnet school, and we're getting the tuition for the VOAG. So you'll see that tuition went up from 775,000 to 1,038,000 this year. And that's that 300,000 that they refer to at the Board of Ed meeting.
Maria, I know in part of our follow-up with Mr. Dunn in the building department, we asked for some breakout on permitting fees. That was part of the stuff that we sent over. I know you're working on that already.
Yes, I sent it to the department heads. I'm waiting on their reply.
Yeah, I that's what I figured. I just wanted to make sure that people knew that we did ask that already. Mark?
Yeah, hi. Is there any other locations that we could put some cell towers on? Because, you know, sometimes I feel like you know, in like the middle of the woods around here with my cell phone coverage. And so if there's a way to increase coverage and at the same time increase some fees,
What'd you say, Mark?
that would be good for me.
Can't hear you, Mark. What?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Hello.
What street are you on, Mark?
Yeah.
What street are you on?
Old Tree Farm.
Let's put one right there.
Yeah. I'm good. Can I?
I would be too.
Put one,
I would be too.
There's a park right down the street we can put one on. It's like, you know. So that was just a question. I mean, maybe a question and maybe a request. But yeah. How do we
Please
go
address all the correspondence concerning increased cell towers to Mark Matscola directly.
Yeah, you can send them to my way. Yeah, exactly.
Is there any more opportunity for boosters? Does that help at this point on the current?
Mary, Marty's in front of you. He has his hand up.
That's why I quickly spoke. I saw his finger and I jumped in.
No, I'd like Mary to go first. I'll go after her.
Okay, well then you get to go after Elaine, but that's okay.
Absolutely. Maybe they're not ready. I'll go then.
Okay.
I did want to make sure I understand, because this did come up as a topic of at the Board of Ed meetings, and I would like to understand the rationale on how is it that the VOAG money was coming into the town and not the Board of Ed budget? Was that always the case? What's the rationale for that? That did come up, and I really am not familiar with the history of this.
Well, that's always been the case. And the fact that they budget their expenses gross, they would need to budget them net if they were to receive the tuition reimbursement there. It probably will be one of those special agency accounts that they maintain. And I'm not sure how they would track it, but this has always been the case. They budget the full cost, and we budget the revenue.
So when you say always the case, this is 10 years, 20 years, this has always been how it's been done?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I guess at the end of the day, we get a certain amount of revenue and they get a certain amount on their program line. It doesn't really matter if it's always been that case. Okay, thanks. Nothing, I appreciate it.
I'm sorry, Elaine?
Yeah.
Maria, I noticed that there's that tuition that's gone up from the 736 to the little over a million. The 300,000 change is now they'll pay for the VOAG. But what's the other 700 for?
Where's the other 700?
Well, we went from 700 to $1,003,000, $1,038,000.
Well, that's for other kids attending the Trumbull High School and other schools. I think it's when the teachers and other parents from other towns send their kids to the Trumbull school system, and we get reimbursed from the different towns or cities like Bridgeport and so forth.
So, but Trumbull has not had to pay that tuition bill ever to the magnet schools, correct? Because they did it.
Yeah.
So I think, Marty, one of the differences here is this is a new expense to the Board of Ed. In the years past, they've never had to pay this. So while we've always kept the other money, this expense is new to them, as is the reimbursement, however, is not new to us, although they stopped paying us for several years. And then there is still the money that the state sends us for the agri-science school, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. There's a portion in the page 3,
right?
Approximately 800,000 that comes from the state with the VOAG.
The VOAG grant.
Yep.
And that's been steadily dropping for the last.
Yep.
Quite a few
Elaine and
years.
Maria, don't we pay some of the salaries for the VOAG Center out of the town side and not from the Board of Ed budget because of that?
No, the whole VOAG is, the only thing that wasn't, the state gave us the money to build it, but we pay it out of, it's just another operating school. So no, we don't pay anything unusual for that particular school. Okay. And then Maria, on this year, we are budgeting $1.9 million out of the fund balance. Out of the $2,825,000 we budgeted last year, do we know how much of this we've used? Have we used any of it yet?
We won't know until the end, because basically if your revenues and your expenses, you're not going to use any of it. But this year, as you can see, revenues are down and some of the expenses are also down. But at this point in time, I'm not able to give you a detail. There is a fund balance report, and we could go over it the next meeting, unless you want to go over now. Sure. Which I projected some of the surpluses and expenses and deficits in some of the revenues. So we could go over the next meeting.
Okay.
And I'll probably have better figures by then too. The other thing that's not considered here is any stimulus money they'll be coming from the state, because at this point we don't know the specifics. We don't know what it can be used for. There's been talk about being able to use it for the shortfall in revenues, maybe one-time expense, but we're not sure yet.
Yeah, there's been a lot of conversation that it can't be used to lower taxes. There are all kinds of questions about what they'll let us use for. We might have an infusion of capital projects, but
right.
That's to be seen when the rules come out. Okay, thank you, Maria, appreciate it.
All right, any other questions? Anything that I missed earlier for follow-up requested information that you'd like? I have a running list from today's discussions with departments. If you don't think of it, if you think of something after this meeting, please send them to me. I'd like to get them to Maria by this weekend. I heard you, thank you. And we can go from there. Anything else? If not, I think we had 2 really good days of discussions with our departments. Everybody's been great with their information and getting back to us. Thank you very much for your follow-up and your time. And Steve dropped off the call a little while ago. He didn't feel so well, so get well so we can see you on Thursday, Steve. And hopefully everybody's doing okay. Any other questions?
The time on Thursday, what time are we doing that?
I believe it's 7 p.m.
Okay.
Okay. So Bill should have sent links to everybody for that meeting, and they should have arrived yesterday. If you did not get one, please let me know. Other than that, I'll take by unanimous consent that we're saying goodbye.
Emails will be sent later. I didn't want to confuse it with this meeting.
Oh, thank you, Bill. I
Thanks,
saw
Bill,
something
'cause
go
I didn't see
yesterday.
it.
Okay, thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you all.